Most people think La Jolla is just another wealthy beach town. It's not. La Jolla is beautiful, kind of the way the coast of Italy is beautiful. Florida is beautiful like the Seychelles. Both are stunning, but they hit completely differently. The Pacific here feels ancient and powerful and moody, and somehow over time, this place changes people. And the strange thing is, most people don't even realize how small they've been living until after they get here, including me. There are places in the world that impress you, places that entertain you, places that photograph beautifully. And then there are places that quietly, they just rearrange you from the inside. La Jolla was that place for me. I've traveled a lot of places in my life, and there is still nowhere on earth that feels quite like this. And it's not because of the houses, and it's not because of the money, and it's not even because of the weather. It's the feeling, the energy, the movement, the Pacific Ocean, the way people live here. And honestly, it's hard to explain until you get here yourself. This coastline is something else entirely. Moodier, more dramatic, more layered. The Pacific doesn't feel soft here. It feels alive. And over time, you start to understand why people never fully leave. When I first moved to La Jolla, this was the first place I lived. And you won't even believe what it cost. I think back then we paid like $3,000 a month. 7 doors away from me is Windansea Beach. And this adorable Spanish Revival bungalow that we lived in is on Bon Air Street, 330 Bon Air Street. I love it. It was 2004. And I ended up living 7 doors from Windansea Beach during what I like to call my dark ages. Now, how somebody ends up 7 doors from Windansea during the worst time in their life, honestly, other than God, I still don't know. But somehow this place helped put me back together again. And hey, by the way, I'm Jennifer St. Clair, and this is Living in San Diego, where I take you beyond the beaches into what it actually feels like to move here, live here, and be changed by places like La Jolla. And this video isn't just another neighborhood tour. This is actually the story of what La Jolla does to people. So when I first got here from Georgia, I honestly didn't know that people even lived like this. I mean, I had seen it on TV, people surfing before work, people walking everywhere. I mean, I almost ran over a few of them because nobody walks anywhere in Georgia, and my eyes weren't targeting people in sidewalks. I mean, there were people skateboarding barefoot down the street, dogs at the beach every evening, outdoor concerts in January. And in Georgia, eventually the cold, heat, pollen, or humidity was going to drive you back inside. But in San Diego, you walk outside and suddenly you've got energy again. The climate almost pulls you outdoors. And then there's the Pacific Ocean. If you grew up vacationing on the Emerald Coast of Florida like I did, this ocean is a complete shock. The Gulf feels warm and gentle and inviting. The Pacific, it kind of wants to kill you. And I mean that respectfully, but this coastline does demand respect. The waves crash against jagged rocks and throw foam 30 feet into the air. The beaches change constantly. The surf changes every day. Tourists, they'll climb out onto the rocks every year, not understanding how powerful this ocean really is. You really should never turn your back on this ocean. I've seen people swept off the rocks. The locals know about it, but tourists don't always know, so be careful. Windansea especially has always had a serious surf culture. This is not beginner surf territory. No kooks allowed here. The locals out there know exactly what they're doing, so don't even try. They'll run you out. And somehow, that power of Windansea becomes you if you stay here long enough, because Windansea is moody, it's magical, it's magnetic. Sometimes calm, always alive, always changing. It's not just another beach at Windansea. It's literally one of the most iconic surf breaks in California. That little surf shack itself was built in the late 1940s by returning World War II surfers using eucalyptus branches and palm fronds for shade. And somehow a tiny handmade surf shack became so important to local culture that the city of San Diego eventually declared an official Wind and Sea Shack Day. That tells you everything you need to know about this place. Seriously, it really does. This isn't polished luxury. This really is mythology. Jan and Dean referenced Windansea in surf music. Andy Warhol filmed here. The legendary Windansea Surf Club grew out of this coastline. Mike Henson, one of the stars of Endless Summer, was part of this culture. Tom Wolfe wrote about the surf scene here in the Pump House Gang. So this little stretch of coastline became part of American cultural history. Windansea has been fought over, built up, and left deliberately raw. And somehow none of that changes what it does to people. When you stand there at sunset, you understand why. The moss-covered rocks, the loud crashing waves, the little shack decorated at Christmas, the packed narrow beach on the 4th of July, the crusty old surfers hanging in the tiny parking lot, the photographers lined up at golden hour. It feels cinematic, even when nothing's happening or everything's happening. And sometimes you stand in front of something that's powerful and you just realize how small you are. And weirdly, that can heal you. Windansea became my church. Not the kind that you hear, the kind you actually feel. And even the name La Jolla carries mystery, and some people believe that it comes from the Spanish phrase La Jolla, Joya, which became the popular nickname meaning the jewel. We've talked about that. And others believe the name traces back much further to the Kumeyaw people who lived along this coastline for thousands of years before any modern development existed here. One theory connects the name to the sea caves carved into these cliffs, the land of holes, and honestly, as an insider, that's an origin that runs much deeper. Both explanations somehow kind of fit, because La Jolla really does feel like a hidden jewel carved into the Pacific coastline. The 7 Sea Caves are one of the most distinctive geographic features in all of Southern California. And the only one that's accessible by land, the Sunny Jim Cave, it requires walking through a hand-carved tunnel that was built back in 1902. It's really cool. There's just something primal about this coastline. The cliffs, the caves, the waves pounding against that weathered rock is just crazy. And even before wealth and architecture and surf culture, this place already had mythology. It's important to remember that all of this exists on unceded Kumeyaw land. And long before La Jolla became internationally known, this coastline already mattered deeply to the people who first lived beside it. One of the things that makes La Jolla so psychologically fascinating is the different kinds of wealth that gather here. Yes, of course, there's monetary wealth. There's oceanfront estates, country clubs, extraordinary homes along some of the most expensive coastline in America. But there's also health wealth. People surfing before work in their 60s, walking everywhere, every evening, every day, training outdoors year-round, living outside instead of hiding indoors. And there's intellectual wealth too. Scientists, researchers, entrepreneurs, people drawn here by Scripps, UCSD, and the Salk Institute from all over the world. And then, of course, there's lifestyle wealth, time outside, movement, connection, energy. That's the thing people are really paying for here. Not square footage, but a way of life. These are the historic Red Rest and Red Roost cottages here in La Jolla, built in 1894 and considered some of the oldest surviving structures in the village. And back then, La Jolla was still basically a tiny seaside resort town connected by the railroad. And these cottages helped define early California bungalow lifestyle, indoor-outdoor living, ocean air, simplicity, and the coastal architecture. We're here in front of the Brockton Villa restaurant, built in 1894. It's a San Diego historic landmark. And if you can stand the smell, because across the street are the seals. You can't see them from here, but there's a lot of traffic today. It actually really smells really bad. I don't know if I'd want to eat dinner here just because of the smell. So what about the parts of La Jolla? If the village is the heartbeat of La Jolla, and somehow it manages to feel elegant, historic, artistic, touristy, intellectual, and deeply local all at the same time. And this is where everything kind of converges. La Valencia, the Bridge Club, the historic Red Roost and Red Rest dwellings, George's at the Cove, the living room, sidewalk cafes, beautiful, impeccably dressed locals that are mixed with casual tourists, weddings overlooking the ocean, music drifting through Prospect Street at night, the sound of sea lions barking, and the smell of their guano. Ugh. And right here near the Village Cove, one of the best small stories of this entire coastline. Back in 1931, Ellen Browning Scripps funded the seawall at the children's pool to create a protected swimming area for children. A lot of people know this story. And eventually the seals just completely took it back over. Nature won, which honestly feels very La Jolla. People still debate it constantly. Tourists crowd around it trying to get selfies. Children point at the seals. Locals and conservationists argue about access to that little area. And somehow it all became part of the personality of La Jolla. This is where people start realizing La Jolla isn't just wealthy. It's intellectual, artistic, international, and layered. The famous La Jolla Playhouse was founded in 1947 by Gregory Peck, a group of Hollywood artists who were drawn here by the beauty and the serenity of the coastline. For a period of time, La Jolla was literally nicknamed Little Hollywood. I had season tickets to the Playhouse when I lived in La Jolla, and I saw productions like Zhivago, Jersey Boys, and Carmen before some of them moved on to Broadway. And every night, honestly, you could find an event to go to. And that's the thing people misunderstand about La Jolla and San Diego. People assume La Jolla is just beach culture, but the artistic and intellectual history here runs really surprisingly deep. When I first came to La Jolla and somebody introduced me to Bird Rock, this is literally one of the first places that they took me as a kind of a little secret spot that most people don't know about, and I'm going to show it to you. It's down here, and it's kind of not well known by people even in La Jolla. So let's take a look. If the Village is where people come to experience La Jolla, Bird Rock is where people actually live it. It's quieter, more local, more understated. Coffee shops, surfers, little neighborhood restaurants, people walking dogs, and it feels less like a luxury destination and more like a real estate or just a real coastal community. Bird Rock feels like relaxed sophistication, less flash, more lifestyle. There's a neighborhood rhythm here that feels unusually connected. You've got locals grabbing coffee and flip-flops, surfers headed home from the water, dogs everywhere, people stopping to talk on sidewalks. There's a wealth here, too, especially west of La Jolla Boulevard near the coastline. But Bird Rock doesn't perform wealth the way parts of the Village and other parts of La Jolla can. It really, truly feels more grounded, more quietly confident. It's one of my favorite vibes of all of coastal San Diego. I love Bird Rock Coffee Roasters, where the locals hang out, Beaumont's Restaurant for live music, Wayfarer Bread and Pastry for tasty treats, Bird Rock Surf Shop supplies all your beach and surf needs, and then there's the beautiful custom homes. Bird Rock has money, it just doesn't always wear it on its sleeve. Okay, on to one of my favorite vibes in all of coastal San Diego. La Jolla Shores. La Jolla Shores feels completely different from the Bird Rock, Windansea, or the Village energy. The coastline softens here, the beach opens up, people walk for miles, kayaks line the shore. There's a marine preserve that stretches along the water, so a lot of snorkeling and kayaks that go out. So it's more gentle, approachable, and open, more welcoming to new surfers for sure. It's a great place to take surf lessons as well. But it's still stunningly beautiful, less intense than Windansea for sure. And just beyond that, since one of the most intellectually important stretches of coastline in America, and that's the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, the Salk Institute, and the UC San Diego. This area attracts scientists, physicians, researchers, entrepreneurs, and students from all over the world. And then there's this, of course, the Giesel Library, named for Theodore Giesel, who most of the world knows as Dr. Seuss. He lived up on Mount Soledad for 43 years, writing 48 books in a tower overlooking this coastline. The Cat in the Hat, The Grinch, Green Eggs and Ham, all of it was written right here, down in Ellen Browning Scripps Park. And it's the same park Ellen herself helped create. And there stood a Monterey cypress tree with a long, skinny trunk and a wild, fluffy canopy at the top. And the locals called it the Lorax tree because that's exactly what it was. When Dr. Seuss looked out his window and saw this coastline being threatened by development, and then he wrote one of the most important environmental fables ever told, the Lorax. So this place didn't just inspire scientists, it inspired imagination itself. In the Giesel Library, it's one of the most visually distinctive academic buildings in California. And just up the coast, the energy shifts again. La Jolla Shores is where people come to breathe, and La Jolla Farms is where people come to disappear. La Jolla Farms feels almost mythic. Massive oceanfront estates are perched above the cliffs. There's privacy, large lots, old California wealth, Torrey Pines, the glider ports, or the gliders floating over Black's Beach. And even the history here overlaps because Woody Brown, one of the early Windansea surfers, also became instrumental in the Torrey Pines glider port. Surfing, soaring, ocean, air, and movement. That's La Jolla. Even mythology overlaps. And yes, the cliffs here are dramatic, but they're also constantly studied and monitored. That's part of living along a coastline this powerful. Nature always reminds you of who's really in charge. There are a lot of beautiful viewpoints in California, but Mount Soledad feels different. You've got the Pacific Ocean on one side, all of San Diego spread out in front of you, the memorial walls honoring fallen heroes, service members, and the cross above you. And somehow when you stand up here, everything gets quiet for a minute. This is one of those places that reminds you how geographically unbelievable San Diego really is. The ocean, the mountains, the desert, the downtown skyline, it's all right here. And if you're moving to La Jolla, this is one of the insider places you eventually end up bringing everyone who visits you, because the view, it never really gets old. Here's the view from Mount Soledad. Mount Soledad rises 822 feet above the coastline, and the famous cross itself stands nearly 30 feet tall. There are a lot of beautiful viewpoints in California, but Mount Soledad feels different. It feels reverent. Mount Soledad has been debated, contested, and politicized for decades. None of that changes what happens when you stand here. You've got memorial walls honoring service members, the Pacific Ocean in every direction, downtown San Diego behind you, the mountains beyond, and on perfectly clear days, you can even see Mexico in the distance. And this is one of those places where San Diego stops feeling like a city and starts feeling almost mythic. So my father was a decorated, highly decorated military pilot. He was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. So when I'm standing in front of a veterans memorial overlooking the Pacific Ocean, it just tends to hit a little bit differently for me. I know you'll know what I mean when you stand there. And somehow when you stand up there, everything really gets kind of quiet for a minute. Places like this do something to your nervous system over time. You stop living all clenched up, and eventually you realize you don't actually want to go back to a life like that. But there's another story running underneath La Jolla that most people never hear, and it's impossible to understand this place without talking about Ellen Browning Scripps. She moved here later in life after decades of hardship, reinvention, grief, and personal loss. She arrived in La Jolla at around age 60 and spent the final 35 years of her life slowly transforming the entire community. Because La Jolla seems to have a strange history of people arriving here during periods of reinvention and somehow becoming part of the place itself. By the 1920s, she had donated almost all of her fortune into building institutions that still shape La Jolla today. The Scripps Institution, the Bishop's School, the Scripps Memorial Hospital, the Children's Pool, the Public Library, land that became Torrey Pines Reserve. She helped build the intellectual and cultural backbone of modern La Jolla. Even her home eventually became part of the landscape as the Contemporary Museum of Art San Diego currently. The woman herself became woven into the identity of this place, and this place became woven into the identity of who I am. And maybe that's part of why I connect to this place so deeply, because La Jolla has always seemed to attract people who come here cracked open by life, and somehow they become something new. Now, to be fair, La Jolla isn't perfect, and that's part of what makes it real. The water is freezing cold. The marine layer can sit here for months. Summer parking is a nightmare, and tourists flood the coastline in the summer. And yes, parts of La Jolla can be absolutely exclusive. There's status culture here, appearance culture, fitness culture, old money, new money, international wealth. And La Jolla also has a complicated history. Like many affluent coastal enclaves in America, racial covenants and exclusionary practices did shape parts of its early development. And that history matters. But over time, La Jolla became deeply international. You'll hear several different languages spoken when you're out walking around. And you'll see scientists and surfers and artists and physicians and travelers and students, entrepreneurs, people from all over the world colliding along one dramatic stretch of Pacific coastline. And somehow, all of it becomes part of the identity. And by the way, if you're seriously considering relocating to San Diego, I did put together a free relocation guide covering neighborhoods, lifestyle, commute patterns, and the insider details most people don't learn until after they move here. You can grab it in the top pinned comment below, or you can click on or scan this QR code, or you can book a call with me here. Thank you. So today while I was filming, I met a guy from Tennessee. He told me he grew up wakeboarding behind boats back east, and eventually he just wanted to move out here to learn how to surf. And I asked him if he liked it when he got out here, and he laughed and said, people back home, they don't get it. Well, he said more like, people back home don't get it. I'm from Georgia, I can say that. And honestly, he's right. You don't get it if you don't get it. You just don't get it if you don't get it. Most people don't move here for the houses. They move here chasing a feeling. You can surf here before work. You can golf year-round. You can train outdoors year-round. Hike Torrey Pines. Walk your dog at sunset every evening. Garden year-round. Sit outside almost every night of your life. The real luxury in La Jolla just isn't real estate. It's the way people live every single day. And I think what surprised me the most about La Jolla wasn't just how beautiful it is. It's how differently people actually live here. People walk more, surf more, sit outside more, move more, connect more. Or maybe they don't slow down here. Maybe they actually come alive here. La Jolla isn't everybody's cup of tea. The water's cold, the coastline's moody, the Pacific demands respect. But what we've got here, you really can't duplicate. There just isn't another place quite like it on Earth. And once this place gets into your system, it's very hard to forget. If La Jolla's calling you, call me. I'll help you. Just reach out. We'll talk about it. My team and I, we do this every day. And maybe someday, La Jolla can change you too. So my question of the day is, what's one place that completely changed your life? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear. Thank you for staying till the end. Oh, the places you'll go. Stay sunny, San Diego.